There's a difference between looking strong and being strong. One fades in time, the other endures. Most men train for the mirror, for numbers, for praise. But the Stoic trains for something deeper. He trains for self-mastery. He doesn't need motivation. He doesn't need applause. He shows up in silence. He lifts in discipline. He suffers with purpose. Because to the Stoic, the body is not just flesh. It is a battlefield, a forge, a temple, a tool to sharpen the will. He believed that strength was not optional. It was the moral duty of a rational being. Because a weak body becomes a liability, it limits what the mind can execute. It submits to cravings and quits in pain. So you train not just for health, but for command. So that when life demands action, your body does not falter. So that when challenge arrives, your knees do not buckle. Let us make this clear. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about presence, about repetition, about honoring the schedule you made for yourself long after the mood that created it has faded. The Stoic sees training as a ritual, like prayer, like journaling, like meditation. It is a time to confront the self, to sweat out the lies, to confront the limits of will, because in every rep, every breath, every burn, there is a question: are you still in control? And if the answer is yes, then it doesn't matter how much weight is on the bar. It doesn't matter how fast you ran. It doesn't matter if anyone noticed. What matters is that you showed up, fully, without complaint, without drama, without reward. That is Stoic discipline. Quiet, relentless, principled. Let others train for Instagram. You train for integrity. Let others quit when it's hard. You train because it's hard. Let others chase applause. You chase alignment with the highest version of yourself. Because at the end of the day, your body is not just your vehicle. It is your battlefield. And discipline is the armor you wear into every fight, against temptation, weakness, and fear. So the next time you don't feel like training, remember, that feeling is the enemy. That moment is the test. And discipline is the answer. Train for discipline, and you will become unshakable. Part 2. Embrace pain as the path. Discomfort is the doorway to strength. We live in a world that teaches us to run from pain, to numb it, to avoid it, to label it as failure or danger. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic does not fear pain. He does not despise it. He walks into it with eyes open, breath steady, and mind sharp, because he understands pain is not the problem. How you relate to it is. Physical training, real soul-forging training, will hurt. Your muscles will tremble. Your lungs will burn. Your bones will ache. Your skin will break. And your mind will beg you to stop. But what happens next defines you. The untrained mind hears pain and assumes injury. The undisciplined spirit feels discomfort and assumes something is wrong. But the Stoic knows discomfort is not destruction. It is the beginning of transformation. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Let's reverse it. Labor strengthens the body, as difficulties do the mind. That's the Stoic principle in training. You grow through friction. You evolve through adversity. You become by enduring. Think of a sword. A blade left untouched will rust. A blade that is heated, hammered, and hardened becomes sharp, useful, unstoppable. You are the same. And pain is your forge. Every drop of sweat, every grind of muscle, every silent scream inside your ribcage is a chance to practice what the Stoics call apatheia, mastery over the passions, not suppression, but sovereignty. Not, I feel nothing, but rather, I feel, and still I choose. That's Stoicism. To hurt and not quit, to shake and still go deeper, to tremble and still stay focused, to burn and still breathe. Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the doorway to strength, to discipline, to resilience. Every person wants to be strong, but very few are willing to suffer. And yet suffering, not suffering for its own sake, but suffering with purpose, is the single, irreplaceable path to power. The Stoic does not seek pain. He simply does not run when it comes. He meets it, studies it, and grows through it. So what does this look like in training? It looks like pushing one more rep when your arms scream no. It looks like running one more mile when your legs are lead. It looks like waking up sore and training anyway, not recklessly, but deliberately. It looks like embracing the voice in your head that says, "This is hard, I want to stop," and answering back, "Yes, that's the point." The body doesn't grow from what's easy. It grows from what's necessary. It adapts when the load demands adaptation. No pressure, no transformation. And your mind, it's the same. Every time you choose effort over ease, you reinforce your ability to govern yourself, to hold your line, to suffer well, because pain reveals character. And Stoicism is the art of choosing who you become when suffering enters the room. Let's be clear, pain should not be glorified, but it should not be feared either. Pain is information. Pain is a mirror. Pain is a threshold, a forge to burn away weakness, a temple to house clarity and courage, a battlefield where he meets and defeats every excuse. This is not about fitness, it's about philosophy. It's about becoming the kind of man who is unmoved by pain, unfazed by failure, and unstoppable in pursuit of virtue. If you never touch discomfort, you will never touch greatness. So stop asking, how do I avoid the pain of training? Ask, how do I meet it with strength? Remind yourself, this pain is the sound of progress. This burn is the evidence of transformation. This discomfort is the doorway to everything I said I wanted. Because no one ever became strong by feeling good every day. They became strong by confronting what others avoid, by staying in the fire long enough to become something new. You want to become the strongest version of yourself? Then you must become familiar with pain, not as your enemy, but as your master, as your mentor, as your invitation to rise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." This is not cruelty, this is clarity. And clarity is what gets you through the last rep, the last sprint, the hardest day. So when your muscles burn, when your thoughts waver, when everything in you says, stop, smile. You've arrived. This is the place. This is the forge. Step in. Part 3. Show up without excuses. Consistency is stronger than motivation. There is a dangerous myth in the world of physical training, the myth of motivation, that you need to feel inspired to begin, that your workouts depend on energy, hype, or a perfect playlist, that you'll train when you feel like it. But the Stoic knows, if your discipline depends on emotion, you are already defeated, because motivation is fleeting. It's a visitor. It shows up when it wants to, and disappears when it's most inconvenient. But consistency? That is the Stoic's companion. That is what builds strength. Not the spectacular sessions, but the quiet ones. Not the viral moments, but the early mornings when no one is watching. Epictetus said, "How long will you wait before you demand the best for yourself?" Not demand from others, from yourself. Every day you wait for motivation is another day you delay greatness. So let's destroy the illusion right here. You don't need motivation to train. You need a decision. You need a standard. You need a rule that says, I train because I said I would. Not because the sky is clear. Not because you slept well. Not because your pre-workout kicked in. You train because you are building the kind of character that does not break under negotiation. The Stoic doesn't ask, do I feel like it? He asks, What would a disciplined man do right now? Then he does it. That's the game. That's the edge. That's what separates those who try from those who become. Let's go deeper. Consistency is not just about showing up. It's about showing up right, with presence, with clarity, with full engagement. Even when energy is low, you're not just checking a box, you're casting a vote. Every rep, every set, every session is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. You may think skipping one workout doesn't matter, but it does. Not because of what happens physically, but because of what you reinforce mentally. Every time you train, you teach yourself, I do hard things, even when I don't want to. That message, repeated daily, builds a wall around your willpower. It becomes your default. So what happens when you don't feel like showing up? You show up anyway. You train light. You stretch. You walk. You sweat just a little. Not because the session will be perfect, but because your identity depends on your ability to honor your commitments. The Stoics believed in living by principle, not preference. Marcus Aurelius didn't want to wake up early and face hardship every day. He often wrote about how tired he was, but he also wrote this: at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. You are not a machine. You are not meant to feel optimal every day, but you are meant to practice sovereignty over your impulses. That is Stoic strength. To show up on the days you feel broken, to train through the fog of doubt, to keep going, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Let's simplify. You won't always feel like it. You don't need to. You just need to start. The feeling comes after the movement, not before. When you remove the emotion from the equation, everything becomes clear. There is no debate. There is no delay. There is only execution. The man who trains only when motivated is a slave to his mood. The man who trains every day, regardless of mood, is a master of his mind. And mastery is what we're after, not for pride, but for freedom. Because when you are consistent, you don't just build muscle, you build momentum, and momentum makes you unstoppable. You miss one day, fine, but you don't miss two. You're sick, rest, but return as soon as possible. You're busy, adjust, but never abandon. Show up. If you're tired of chasing hype, if you're ready to build something that lasts beyond the gym, if you want to become the strongest version of yourself, not just in body, but in mind, spirit, and action, then these are the 10 Stoic principles that will reshape how you train and how you live. Let's begin. Part 1. Train for discipline, not for applause. In the age of mirrors and measurements, we've confused the purpose of physical training. We chase aesthetics over ability, always. Even for 15 minutes, even for one set, even for one deep breath in a push-up position. Because showing up isn't about the result, it's about the ritual. And rituals shape identity. So, no more waiting for the perfect mood. No more waiting for someone to inspire you. No more blaming weather, soreness, or lack of motivation. You are a Stoic. You train because it's what you do. Because you gave your word. Because this is your path. And you will walk it. Rain or shine. Weak or strong. Motivated or not, you show up. And in doing so, you become something most men never do. A man of action, not excuse. A man of strength, not story. A man of consistency, forged in silence. Part 4. Practice restraint. True strength knows when to hold back. Strength is not always the ability to push harder. Sometimes it's the wisdom to pull back, to listen to the body, to recognize that more effort doesn't always mean better progress, to know that discipline includes restraint, not just intensity. The modern world glorifies hustle. It worships grind. It praises the man who trains until he breaks. But the Stoic doesn't chase self-destruction disguised as dedication. He doesn't wear burnout like a badge of honor, because he knows power without control is chaos. Effort without intelligence is ego. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That includes stepping away from the crowd who says, "No days off. Push through everything." Rest is weakness, because the truth is, rest is not weakness. Rest is mastery. Rest is recovery. Rest is the reload that makes the next attack more effective. Let's be clear, Stoicism is not about fragility. It's about control. And control includes the decision to pause when the body says, "Not today, not like this." There is a difference between pushing through resistance and ignoring warning signs. The Stoic knows the difference because he doesn't train for adrenaline. He trains for longevity, for sustainability, for the lifelong pursuit of excellence, not the fleeting spike of a personal record. So what does restraint look like in training? It looks like stopping one set before injury. It looks like deloading for a week to let joints recover. It looks like skipping the gym after 3 days of poor sleep, not because of laziness, but because of strategy. It looks like mobility work on a day you plan to lift heavy, but your back feels tight. In a world of extremes, this is rebellion. This is clarity. This is how the Stoic trains differently. He doesn't prove his toughness to strangers. He protects his capacity so he can serve his mission. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality, but many also suffer more in pride than in purpose." The athlete who won't rest because he fears being seen as soft. He's a slave to perception. The man who tears his rotator cuff because he refused to listen to his shoulder, he's ruled by ego. The Stoic is ruled by principle, not pressure. And one of those principles is this: nothing is gained if everything is lost. You miss a workout to protect your spine? You won. You choose yoga instead of powerlifting because your nervous system is fried? You won. You leave one rep in the tank instead of chasing numbers on a bad day. You won. Because the goal isn't just to train hard, it's to train forever. To be the man who is still moving, still strong, still centered. Not at 25, but at 50. Not for a photo, but for life. That requires restraint. Restraint in reps. Restraint in volume. Restraint in lifestyle. Discipline isn't always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about doing less, on purpose. And that is one of the hardest disciplines to master. You will feel tempted to prove something, to do more than your body's asking, to silence its messages. But the Stoic doesn't prove, he improves. He trains not to conquer others. He trains to remain available for life, to be ready, balanced, functional, powerful, not only when energized, but also when wise. So next time your body whispers, "I need space," listen, step back, recover, not out of weakness, but out of respect for the system you're building. You want to become the strongest version of yourself? That version doesn't just dominate. That version discerns when to push, when to pull, when to rest, when to reload. Because the man who knows when to stop is the only one who can go the farthest. This is true strength. This is the Stoic's restraint. Quiet, strategic, unshakable. We obsess over external validation, likes, followers, attention, and forget the ancient reason why we train at all. The Stoic does not train for applause. He trains for mastery, not to impress others, but to discipline the self. This is where physical training begins, not with muscle, but with meaning. And that meaning must be rooted in something deeper than vanity. Seneca once wrote, "We treat the body rigorously so that it is not disobedient to the mind." Part 5. Train the mind through the body. Every rep is a mental rehearsal. Most people think training is only about the body. They count the reps, track the calories, measure the weight. But they forget what the Stoics never did. Every rep you lift is a message you send to your mind. Every drop of sweat is a vote for who you are becoming. And every moment of effort is an opportunity to train not just the muscle, but the will. The Stoic doesn't enter the gym just to sculpt his physique. He enters to sharpen his attention, to discipline his reactions, to anchor his breath, to practice the art of presence under pressure. Because the gym is a battlefield, not just against gravity, but against distraction, against impulsivity, against emotional noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But how do you train that power? You don't just sit in meditation. You practice it where your breath is short, your muscles are burning, and your comfort is gone. You train your mind through your body. When you're under the bar, you are not just lifting, you are rehearsing. Focus, patience, endurance, self-restraint, emotional control. You are building the very traits that Stoicism requires through physical repetition. Let's make it practical. Every time your muscles scream and your mind wants to quit, that is a mental fork in the road. You can choose surrender or sovereignty. You can let discomfort dictate your decision, or you can override it with reason. And the more you override it, the more fluent you become in the language of stillness under stress. So training becomes more than fitness. It becomes philosophy in motion. The Stoic doesn't train distracted. He doesn't scroll between sets. He doesn't rush for dopamine hits. He trains like a warrior sharpening his blade, fully aware that the real battle is not the barbell, but the moment. He doesn't feel like continuing and chooses to anyway. That moment is everything. That moment is where resilience is born. That moment is where the gap between who you are and who you want to be closes. So treat every session like meditation, not passive, active, rooted in presence, in breath, in form, in discipline. Let your deadlifts be practice for carrying burdens with dignity. Let your squats be training for standing tall when life tries to push you down. Let your pull-ups remind you that sometimes the only way out is up, and it's always within your power. Don't chase numbers, chase control, chase composure, chase the kind of inner silence that allows you to endure without being disturbed. Seneca said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." In the gym, you get to test that. You imagine the weight is too much until you lift it. You imagine you're too tired until you finish the set. You imagine you'll fail until you prove yourself wrong. That repetition is mental armor. It conditions you not just to tolerate pressure, but to thrive under it. It teaches your nervous system that discomfort is survivable, that fear is not fact, that stress is not danger. And over time, your default changes. You become calmer under fire, more deliberate in crisis, less reactive in conflict, because you've trained it through iron, through breath, through sweat, through showing up when everything says stop. So stop seeing training as separate from your philosophy. It is your laboratory. It is your monastery. It is your mirror. Who are you when it hurts? Who are you when the finish line feels far? Who are you when no one is watching? That's who you really are. Train that. Not just for strength, for clarity, for character, for the kind of internal power that doesn't disappear when you leave the gym. You want to be unbreakable? Then don't just train your body, train your mind through your body. Every rep, every breath, every set. Part 6. Master simplicity. Complexity is the enemy of discipline. In today's fitness world, complexity is marketed as mastery. We're told we need the latest routines, the newest supplements, the most advanced tech, the perfect training app, more data, more hacks, more variables. But the Stoic knows better. True power is built through simplicity, not complexity, because complexity creates confusion, and confusion is the enemy of consistency. And without consistency, there is no strength, only chaos dressed in effort. Seneca warned against luxury of the mind, becoming addicted to novelty, needing everything to be new, advanced, sophisticated. He said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." This is the heart of Stoic training. You are not sculpting your body for the gaze of the world. You are sharpening it so that your will cannot be overruled by laziness, by weakness, or by pleasure. So ask yourself honestly, why do you train? To be seen, or to be strong? To gain admiration, or to master resistance? Because if your answer is external, then your strength will always be fragile, subject to opinions, trends, and the approval of others. That same mindset applies to training. When you're always chasing the perfect plan, you miss the present discipline. The one that says, show up, do the work, do it again tomorrow. The strongest men in history didn't have algorithms. They had routine. They had presence. They had principles. The Stoic trains the same way. He doesn't need to reinvent the wheel every week. He doesn't abandon a system because it's not exciting. He masters the basics so completely that they become a form of meditation. Push, pull, squat, move, rest, repeat. Not because it's flashy, but because it's effective. The world will tell you that you need complexity to evolve. But complexity often becomes a distraction, an excuse to not start, a reason to overthink, a shield from the pain of repetition. But repetition is where greatness is forged. You want strength? You want discipline? Then stop searching for the newest thing. Start mastering the ancient things. The Stoics didn't write 1,000 different philosophies. They wrote a few truths and repeated them for a lifetime. That's what you do in training. You don't need 20 movements. You need 5 done with presence. You don't need 6 different programs. You need one that you actually follow, with intention, not impatience. Simplicity removes decision fatigue. It removes ego. It removes the illusion that there's always something better out there. And when you remove those distractions, what remains? The work, the body, the breath, the clarity. Stoicism is about living by principle, not preference. So is strength. A simple training plan, repeated consistently with focus, will outlast every overcomplicated system that burns out in 3 weeks. Why? Because strength is cumulative, not just muscularly, but psychologically. Every time you return to the basics, you reinforce identity. You don't need it to feel new, you need it to feel yours. So what does simplicity look like? Wake up, move, lift things, put them down, breathe with control, track your progress with brutal honesty, eat food that came from the earth, not a lab, sleep without screens, repeat. That's it. And yes, that's enough. Don't underestimate it. Don't try to impress yourself with complexity. Impress yourself with commitment. Simplicity is a form of mental discipline. It says, I don't need constant change to stay engaged. I don't need novelty to stay committed. I'm here. I'm doing the work. That's all that matters. The Stoic doesn't ask for fireworks. He asks for focus. He doesn't need complexity. He needs consistency. He doesn't look for stimulation. He looks for stillness inside the work. So stop chasing the next routine. Stop switching programs every month. Stop confusing change with progress. Choose a path. Simplify it. Own it. Repeat it. Evolve through it. Because complexity might feel exciting, but simplicity builds unshakable strength. And the man who masters the simple things will outlast every man distracted by the complex. Part 7. Delay gratification. Play the long game of true strength. We live in a culture of instant results, quick fixes, 30-day transformations, 6-minute abs. Everything is now, now, now. But the Stoic does not rush. He does not need applause tomorrow to justify his effort today. He understands. What is built slowly lasts. What comes quickly crumbles. In the gym, this truth is everywhere. You don't build real strength in a week. You don't sculpt mastery in a month. You don't forge a resilient body and soul in the microwave. You earn it, set by set, rep by rep, day by silent, disciplined day. And that requires the one virtue our world fears the most: patience. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." So many waste their strength chasing shortcuts, chasing appearance over durability, chasing speed over sovereignty. But the Stoic plays the long game. He doesn't ask, "How fast can I get results?" He asks, "How deep can I build the foundation so the results never leave me?" This is the power of delayed gratification. To show up today, knowing the fruits may not come for months. To suffer today, trusting that what you endure is shaping you. To lift with precision, even when the mirror doesn't reflect the progress yet. This is strength, not just physical, but philosophical. Think of a tree. It grows slowly, invisible for months, roots reaching down while nothing appears above. Then, one day, it breaks through the surface, unshakable, because it was patient. That's how you must train. You're not working for applause. You're working for a kind of power that no one can see until it's too strong to ignore. You want to know who wins in the long run. Not the most genetically gifted, not the one who posts the most transformation photos, but the one who stays. But if you train for a discipline, you cannot be moved, because you are not motivated, you are committed. Let us begin here. Discipline is the foundation of all physical power. The Stoics knew this in a world without gyms, without protein shakes, without fitness trackers. They trained through hardship. They endured through principle. They didn't post it, they lived it. Marcus Aurelius trained his body while running an empire. Who shows up year after year? Who trains with a long view, not a short fuse? Because the man who can delay gratification owns his future. The man who needs validation now will always be a slave to urgency. So how do you practice this? Stop chasing progress every session. Track patterns over months, not days. Reward yourself with integrity, not junk. Say no to short-term pleasure if it robs long-term performance. Visualize your future self and make decisions today that man would respect. This is a different level of living. While others burn out chasing fast gains, you can serve, you build, you accumulate, quietly, patiently, relentlessly. And this applies beyond the gym. Every time you delay gratification, you train yourself to govern desire, to delay the impulse, to resist the need to feel good in exchange for becoming good. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. He didn't rush. He didn't crave. He acted with clarity and let the results come in their time. So today, you may not see the muscle. You may not feel the strength. You may feel slow, tired, unseen. Good. That means you're doing it right, because the real work is slow. And the men who master slowness, who endure the boredom of growth, who sacrifice today's sugar for tomorrow's steel, they become unstoppable. You don't need fast. You need forever. You don't need hype. You need habit. You don't need validation. You need vision. And if you can delay gratification, if you can fall in love with the grind, the silence, the repetition, then time becomes your ally, and everything you're building now will be waiting for you, stronger, deeper, unbreakable, on the other side of patience. Part 8. Respect the process. Progress is earned in silence. In the early stages of training, progress is loud. You feel stronger after a few weeks. You see new lines in the mirror. Compliments start coming. You start thinking, this is working. But then, it slows. You plateau. The numbers stall. The excitement fades. And now you're faced with a question. Will I keep going when nothing is happening on the surface? This is where most people quit. But this is where the Stoic begins. Because the Stoic doesn't just train for results. He trains for the relationship he's building with reality, with repetition, with time. He knows progress is not loud. It is silent. It accumulates in the shadows, not the spotlight. Marcus Aurelius never boasted about personal records. Seneca didn't flex his routine. Epictetus didn't keep a scoreboard. They lived quietly. They worked privately. They sharpened themselves through deliberate repetition, regardless of attention, approval, or applause. The Stoic doesn't need external validation to stay on the path, because he respects the process. And what is the process? It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's not always visible. It's showing up when no one notices. It's doing the same warm-up for the 100th time. It's perfecting form no one will ever see. It's doing reps after failure, with no music and no audience, because you understand, every ounce of mastery is paid for in invisible work. The Stoic loves that silence, because in that silence, he sees truth. Truth about his mind. Truth about his limits. Truth about his commitment. And commitment is everything. When you respect the process, you stop rushing, you stop complaining, you stop comparing, you start building. Patiently, intentionally, stoically. Progress becomes less about what you can see and more about what you can't. The breath control during a heavy set, the posture under fatigue, the grit in the last rep, the stillness in your recovery, the fact that you showed up without needing to be inspired. That is real strength, because anyone can train when they're winning. But the Stoic trains when he feels like nothing is happening, because he knows something always is. The foundation deepens, the roots settle, the nervous system adapts, the mind toughens, the identity crystallizes, and one day, that silent work erupts. The strength shows, the clarity shines, the power speaks. But it only speaks for those who waited long enough in the quiet to hear it. So when the results stall, when no one is noticing, when the scale won't move, when the PRs stop coming, do not quit, do not panic, do not chase noise. Just keep going. Because while others jump programs, while others seek hacks, while others chase feeling, you stay rooted. You respect the pace. You respect the principle. You respect the path. And that respect becomes momentum. That momentum becomes identity. That identity becomes power. And it's not flashy. It's not viral. Not because it was trendy, but because he understood. A mind cannot lead a body it cannot command. And neither can you. Every time you step into the arena of effort, whether that's a gym, a track, a mat, or your own floor, you are not just lifting weight, you are lifting resistance. And resistance is where virtue grows. The Stoic does not crave ease, he invites difficulty. Because difficulty is the teacher of strength. It's not for show, it's just yours, earned, quietly, honestly, daily. You want to be strong? Then learn to fall in love with the invisible. Learn to worship the process, even when it doesn't love you back yet, because it always will, if you are patient enough to stay faithful. Respect the process, and the process will reward you in ways no shortcut ever could. Part 9. Own your pain. Suffering becomes power when you don't hide from it. Every serious athlete, warrior, and seeker of strength eventually meets pain. not the soreness that fades after a session, not the fatigue you shake off with a nap, but the pain that lingers, the kind that questions your purpose, that gnaws at your discipline, that whispers, "Why are you doing this?" And that's when the world will tell you, avoid it, dull it, distract from it, numb it. But the Stoic doesn't run from pain. He walks into it. He names it. He owns it, because he knows. Unacknowledged pain becomes poison, but pain that is owned becomes power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This is not denial. This is dominion. A choice to reframe suffering, not as torment, but as transformation. The Stoic knows that pain is part of the contract. If you want to become unbreakable, you have to meet what tries to break you. And that means standing in the fire without flinching. Not because you like the burn, but because you understand what it reveals, where your limits truly lie, what lies you've been telling yourself, what you actually believe when nothing feels good, who you become when the comfort is gone. Every PR is born through pain. Every breakthrough is guarded by hardship. Every evolution demands you cross a threshold of suffering. And when that moment comes, most people choose the exit. But the Stoic asks, what if this pain is the price for who I said I wanted to become? So he stays, he breathes, he watches, he listens to the message inside the pain. Maybe your form is off. Maybe your rest is shallow. Maybe your ego is lifting more than your spine can support. Maybe your fear of failure is louder than your desire to grow. Pain, when listened to, teaches. Pain, when denied, punishes. So own it. Write it down. Track it. Honor it. Talk to it. Ask it. Why are you here? What are you trying to teach me? The Stoic doesn't panic at pain. He becomes curious. He steps closer because he knows that suffering does not destroy. It exposes, and exposure is sacred. It shows you where your training ends, and your transformation begins. So what does this look like? It's finishing the last rep while your thoughts scream to quit. It's holding perfect form under fatigue when your body begs to collapse. It's showing up sore, tired, empty, and giving what you still have. It's getting injured, sitting in the stillness, and rebuilding with more intention than before. Pain is not the end of the journey, it is the refinement of it. It doesn't say, "You're weak." It says, "This is your edge." And if you can stay there, if you can breathe there, if you can hold the pose a few seconds longer, run a few meters further, pull the bar just 1 inch more, you walk through a door that most never reach, the door to real power, to earned confidence, to unshakable self-respect. Because when you own your pain, you take away its power to define you. You turn it into fuel, into fire, into form. And when others see your strength, they won't see the pain you carried to get there, but you will. You'll feel it in every rep, every breath, every time you stand firm when it would have been easier to fold. And in that quiet defiance, you become something that can't be taught, bought, or faked. A man who has made peace with pain and emerged with purpose. Part 10. Train for life. Strength means nothing if it doesn't serve your mission. What is strength for? This is the question the Stoic asks when the world forgets the point. Is it just about bigger arms, a leaner frame, numbers on a bar, a mirror's approval? If so, then strength is shallow, temporary, trapped in aesthetics and applause, easily lost, easily replaced. But the Stoic doesn't train to impress, he trains to serve, because strength is only noble when it's useful, when it serves a mission greater than vanity. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He faced wars, betrayal, loss, and illness. He did not train to look powerful. So what does it mean to train for discipline? It means you show up when it's inconvenient, when it's cold, when it's raining, when your body aches and your mind protests. Because the point is not the workout. The point is becoming the kind of person who does not negotiate with excuses. You don't train because you feel like it. You train to train that feeling, to shape it, to override it, to command it. The Stoic separates pleasure from principle. If pleasure aligns with virtue, enjoy it. He trained to endure pain, fatigue, and stress so that he could remain effective. Seneca mentored emperors and managed wealth with composure. He trained his mind and body not to boast, but to remain still in the chaos of Rome. And Epictetus, born a slave, crippled in body, taught the highest levels of fortitude. He didn't have muscles to flaunt, but he had power no man could take from him. This is the Stoic's strength, rooted in purpose, anchored in meaning, channeled into service. So ask yourself, what is your strength for? To protect your family? To stay grounded when everyone else panics? To carry burdens that would break weaker men? To move through the world with confidence, not ego? To stand between chaos and those you love? Train for that. Train not to sculpt an image, but to embody a calling. Train so you can stay calm in emergencies, so you can lift your child when they're tired, so you can fight if you must, so you can lead when others retreat, so you can keep your promises to yourself. Because what good is strength if it dies the moment life gets hard? Train for life, for death, for the long road, for the unknown. Let the gym be your forge, but let the world be your proving ground. And don't be fooled. Strength that lives only in the gym is incomplete. If it doesn't translate into discipline at work, integrity in relationships, or stillness in adversity, then what are you really building? The Stoic doesn't train in isolation. He carries what he builds into every corner of his life. His posture under the bar becomes his posture in conflict. His breath under stress becomes his breath in arguments. His grit in training becomes his grace under pressure. Because strength is never just physical, it is spiritual, psychological, relational. It is the echo of 1,000 decisions made in silence. It is the shadow of all the mornings you trained when you didn't want to. It is the reward for all the pain you didn't run from. So build a body that can carry your mission, not just weights, not just compliments, but meaning. You are not here to be admired. You are here to be dependable, reliable, unshakable. You are here to walk into the fire, not because it's impressive, but because it's your duty. That's what strength is for. To stay still when the storm hits, to hold your ground when others break, to live aligned, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. So finish your sets, fuel your body, rest your mind, sharpen your edges, and remember, all of this, every rep, every burn, every discipline, is not for ego. It's for excellence, not someday, but now. Not for looks, but for legacy. Train for life, live for purpose, endure for something greater than yourself, and you will become the rarest thing in this world. A strong man with a clear soul. The strongest men don't always shout. They don't always post. They don't always flex. They endure. They suffer in silence. They show up without applause. They lift when no one watches. They rest when wisdom demands it. They breathe through pain, not to escape it, but to understand it. The Stoic doesn't chase the body. He builds the soul through the body. He knows that every rep is a choice. Every breath is a declaration. Every session is a step towards something unshakable. Because in the end, it's not about how much you lift. It's about what your training lifts out of you. The excuses, the doubt, the weakness, the fear, the chaos. And what remains is a man forged in fire, calm, clear, capable, rooted in principle, ready for life. This is Stoic strength, not loud, not temporary, but deep, quiet, relentless. And if you train like this, not just to look strong, but to be strong, then you will carry that power into every corner of your life, not just into the gym, but into conflict, into loss, into leadership, into love, into legacy. So let the world chase fast results. You build something eternal through discipline, through discomfort, through presence, through philosophy. You become the strongest version of yourself from the inside out. If this message resonated with you, if you're tired of empty workouts and ready to train with meaning, purpose, and unshakable discipline, then subscribe to the channel now, because this isn't just about building muscle, it's about building a man with clarity, a man with calm power, a man forged by Stoic principles in every breath, every rep, every moment. Like this video, if you believe strength starts in the mind, share it with someone who's ready to train not just harder, but wiser. And in the comments below, tell me, which Stoic principle will you carry into your next workout and into your life? This is your forge. This is your path. This is your time. If not, reject it. And sometimes, the comfort of skipping your training is a seductive pleasure that must be resisted. Every missed workout is a small surrender, not just to fatigue, but to softness, to the part of you that prefers comfort over character. So you resist, you get up, you move, not to punish yourself, but to honor the part of you that wants to grow. Epictetus taught his students through strict discipline, train with purpose, live with power, become unshakable.